Hello everyone, I am Anis. Welcome back to my YouTube channel or welcome to my YouTube channel. If you all are new here and if you are new, you guys should definitely subscribe. Yeah, you should do that. And press the ringing bell beside subscribe. Okay, let's go to the demo of the application which we are going to make in this video. This is an advanced master detail CRUD application. In this video, we are going to develop a module to manage the purchase orders. As you know very well, I am using Visual Studio 2022 as the development tool and ASP.NET Core with MVC as the platform. Let's see the create action in the 32x speed first. We will enter all the required fields and press the create button to create the purchase order. Let's click the create button. Wow, the purchase order is saved successfully, and that's a beautiful alert giving us an information notice. This is nice, isn't it? Okay, let's see all the features of this module and we will see how it is created one by one. In case if you guys are joining only now, this is the inventory application we are doing for quite some time, and this is the home page of the application. So let's log in. Enter username as tester and enter the password of the tester and press the login button. After that, let's click the transactions menu and click the purchase order menu to load the purchase order listing screen. This is the listing screen of the purchase order. This screen is full featured with options like search, sort and pagination bars. Now let's click the create button to load the purchase order creation screen. This is the purchase order creation screen. Notice the P1 number field is read only and it automatically gives the P1 number sequentially from the database, and this P1 number is unique. Next, the supplier selection box. In this box, I have loaded all the suppliers from the suppliers table so that user can select instead of entering the supplier code. And then this field is the PO currency field. In here, I have loaded all the currencies from the currency table. As of now, only 3 currencies are added and the AED is the default currency. Then the quotation number field is the unique one, and in here we should enter the quotation number received from the supplier. Next, we will select the quotation date because all quotations comes with the validity period. So date is a must entry. After that, let's enter the product name in the product code field. Notice this suggests the products as per the search keyword. Let's select the green shirt and press enter. Notice automatically the description and the product code are picked and populated to the respective text boxes. Then enter the quantity in the quantity text box. Let's enter 50. After that, enter the FOB as 25. FOB means free on board. Notice as soon as we enter the FOB, then the converted price in AED is displayed in the price text box, and this price field is read only. So the user only can enter the FOB. It will calculate the price based on the exchange rate we provide in the currency conversion table. But here now price and FOB are same, and because we have chosen AED as the PO currency and the exchange rate is 1. Then after, notice the line item total is calculated and displayed to line item total field. After that, the quantity total summary is displayed in the total quantity field, and the total amount is calculated and displayed in the value total summary field. Then let's add one more row. Actually, this is a dynamic grid which is completely created by me without using any third-party components. Because I hate third-party components and it does not take much time to create of our own, and I love to create everything myself, and I only go to the Google for ideas. Google is an excellent idea provider. In this row, add item name as black shirt. Just type BL, that's enough. It will list all items which contains the letter BL in it. Then enter quantity as 100. After that, enter FOB as 55. Then after, press add one more time to add one more row. And in here, enter detail floor as an item name. And enter quantity as 25. Notice after inserting the product code, the corresponding unit name is loaded to the unit text box automatically. Actually, this is not easy because I did this without using the Ajax. But how is it possible without using Ajax? Let's see it during the development. And then enter price as 12. After that, click add button again. Notice the grid started scrolling. Yes, this is a scrollable grid with summary totals. Very nice, isn't it? Then enter item description as Fanta small. Notice the grid scroll to accommodate the search list box without disturbing other controls outside of the grid. Then enter quantity as 50 and enter FOB as 15. Notice the totals are calculated and displayed in the respective places automatically. See, now we have 4 items in the grid and the grid is completely scrollable. You can add as many as rows as you wish. Let's click the create button to save the purchase order. Wow, the purchase order is saved with giving a beautiful bootstrap information alert message. This is very nice, isn't it? I like it very much. In case if you also like, then I have a separate tutorial on how to create bootstrap information and error message alerts. I will keep the video link in the description, so please watch that on how to create alerts. Notice in the listing screen, the record is saved successfully, but I actually forgot to set the currency as INR. So let's edit the purchase order to change the currency to INR. So open the purchase order which we just created in the edit screen. And in here, change the PO currency to INR from AED. Notice as soon as I change the currency to INR, the exchange rate field got changed to 0.0470, which is the conversion rate from INR to AED. That means 1 INR is equals to 0.0470 AED. After that, notice the price field in the detail grid also got changed. This is because the exchange rate is applied to the price field. So now the price equals to FOB multiplied by the exchange rate. Now let's change the price of the detail to 15 rupees because the conversion is going to multiple decimals when we put 12 as the FOB. Maybe we will fix this later. Okay, all set now. Let's press the edit button. Wow, the purchase order is modified fine. So edit is also working fine. Next, let's see the details view of the purchase order. So click the details icon to open the purchase order in the detail screen. This is the detail screen of the purchase order, and here all the controls are read only because we don't need to change anything here and we must not change anything in the details view. So the details view is also looking very nice, isn't it? Then let's press the edit button to check the flow whether the edit action is working when we navigate to edit screen from here. Okay, now the purchase order is loaded in the edit screen. Let's change the quotation date to 10th June. Of course, we need to do some changes before saving. Then press the edit button. Perfect. Edit action is working fine even when it is navigated from the details view. So the flow of actions are happening properly. Again, let's open the same record to see the changes we made. Notice the quotation date is changed to 10th June. So our changes got saved properly. Next, we will see the delete screen. So click the delete icon to load the delete screen. This is the delete screen of the purchase order. This is almost identical to the detail screen. The only difference is it has the delete button instead of the edit button. Let's press the delete button to delete the purchase order. Yes, the record is deleted successfully. So all the CRUD actions are working fine. Let's see how it is done now. And then I forgot to tell you, with this purchase order module, I also added the currency module because we have not done the video for the currency module of the inventory project so far. And as we saw in the demo, currency table is referenced by the purchase order header table. So I will explain currency module also along with the purchase order module. First, let's load the currency listing screen. This is the currency listing screen. This screen also has all the features like sorting, paging and such. Then let's click the create button to load the currency creation screen. In here we will create a currency called USD. USD is a very much required currency for any country because most of the transactions happens in USD. After that, select the exchange currency ID as AED. Exchange currency ID should always be AED for this project because AED is the base currency for this project. So we don't want to have multiple conversions. Then the exchange rate between USD to AED is 3.65. I mean 1 US dollar is equals to 3.65 AED. Now click the create button to save the currency. That's it, we successfully saved the currency. Then let's load the USD currency in edit screen and change the exchange rate to 3.66 and change the spelling of the currency name. Then click the save button to update the changes back to the database. That's great. The edit screen of the currency module is also working fine. Let's load the USD currency in the details screen and check is all data saved properly. Yes, all information is saved properly. Notice the exchange rate, it is showing as 3.66 now. Let's click the back button to go back to the listing screen. And then click the delete icon to load the USD currency in the delete screen. Yes, the delete screen also loaded properly. But we don't want to delete the USD currency. That's it with the currency module. Currency module is an important module because I have shown some important options and tricks in this module, and this is the only module which has self-referential foreign key. I mean the exchange currency column is referenced to the primary key column of the same table. That is, the primary key column and the foreign key column are present in the same table. We never done anything like this before, so it is going to be very interesting. Please watch the full video. Let's jump into the development. Start Visual Studio 2022 and open the Inventory Beginners project. In case if you have not downloaded the source code, please download the source code. The source code is .NET 5 version of ASP.NET Core. I have also made a video on how to convert the .NET 5 projects to .NET 6 using Visual Studio 2022. The video link is available in the description. Please watch it if you wish to migrate the project to .NET 6. But in case if you are still using Visual Studio 2019 only, no issues, you can still follow and continue the project in the .NET 5 version. There is no much difference. Oh, still our project is loading. So let me fast forward it to save some minutes. Now the project is loaded in the Visual Studio 2022. Our first step is to create the model for currency entity. Since this looks very similar to our existing models, let's copy the model named brand from the brand.cs file. After copying it, right click the models folder and click add and then click the new item menu. In here, give the file name as currency.cs and press the add button to create the currency.cs file. Now the scaffolding task has completed the creation of currency.cs file. In here, paste the copied text from the clipboard memory. After that, change the name of the class to currency in the pasted text. And then delete the unwanted text. Then after, add a property named exchange currency ID of type integer. This exchange currency ID property is going to be the foreign key by referring to the ID column of the same table. First, add the required data annotation attribute to this property. Then after, add a virtual property of type currency and name it as currencies. Now the important step, so please pay attention and listen carefully. Add the data annotation attribute of type foreign key to the head of the property named exchange currency ID. Then give the name of the source property as currencies. That means this property will refer to the primary key column of the virtual property named currencies. After that, add a property named exchange rate of type decimal. This property will have the conversion of this currency to the base currency. Then in the property head, add the data annotation type column and give the name of the column type to small money. In SQL Server, the small money is a better field to handle small decimal values. I prefer this column over the decimal column to store the decimal values. After that, open the inventory context.cs file and copy the last dbset collection property and paste it below. Then in the pasted property, change the type of the entity model to currency and change the name of the property to currencies. Next, we need to do the migration to update the model changes to the database. So open the package manager console window and in here type add-migration space add currencies and press the enter key to execute the command. Oh, errors. But no worries, I love errors. We will fix it soon. Actually, this error came because we are trying to create self-referential foreign keys. So let's first comment the exchange currency ID property from the currencies model. We will add this property after a few steps. Then let's run the migration command again. The same errors are coming again. I think something went wrong here. Yes, I found the issue. This is a simple error due to overlooking. Actually, this project we started in .NET 5 and in the last video we migrated this project to .NET 6. But we forgot to upgrade the EF core and the dependent libraries to the .NET 6 version. Due to this, we get the unsupported error from the EF core. So, to fix this issue, load the NuGet package manager for solutions. And in here, click the install tab. Then from the installed packages list, find and select Entity Framework Core Tools package. And then click uninstall because this version is for .NET 5 and we are getting errors from this package during the migration commands execution time. So we need a version compatible for .NET 6. So we will search and install it now. Likewise, also uninstall the Entity Framework Core for SQL Server package. This is also .NET 5 version and will not work with our project. And now click the Browse tab and in here type EFCORE for SQL Server and press the Enter key to search online. Then select the first one, EFCORE for SQL Server, and please notice the package version. It is 6.0.4. Now click Install and wait for the installation process to complete. If you are prompted by the Preview Changes dialog box, please click OK and continue the installation. Then press the I accept button in the license acceptance dialog box. After the installation gets complete, search for the EF CORE tools. Now select the first library from the search result list and include to our project. Please notice the package version. It is 6.0.4, which is compatible for .NET 6. And then press the install button to start the installation. If you are prompted by the Preview Changes dialog box, please click OK and continue the installation. Then press the I accept button in the license acceptance dialog box. Then close the Manage Packages for Solution windows and go back to the Package Manager console window to run the migration commands again. And in here type the command add-migration space add currencies and press enter to start the execution of the command and wait for the command execution to complete. Wow, this time the command ran successfully and our migration is added to the pending migrations list. Then type update-database and press enter to update the model changes to the database. Wow, this command also executed successfully. Next, let's uncomment the properties exchange currency ID and currencies from our currency model. After that, let's go to the Package Manager console window and in here type add-migration space modify currencies and press enter to start the command execution. Wow, the add migration got executed successfully. Let's run the update-database command to update the changes to the database. Oh, error. This error says introducing foreign key on the same table will result in multiple cascade paths. So specify no action on delete and update commands. So type remove-migration and press enter to execute the remove migration command. This command will actually delete the last pending migration file from the migration folder. After that, from the currency model file, remove the required attribute from the exchange currency ID property head. Then in the Package Manager console window, type add-migration space add self foreign key and press enter to execute the command. Then type update-database and press the enter key to execute the command. Thank God, this time the update database command has executed successfully without any errors. But still, we will cross-check our work. So let's open SQL Server Management Studio and refresh the tables collection of our database. Then let's select the currency table and expand the keys folder. In here we can see two keys. One is primary key and the second one is the foreign key. This foreign key for the exchange currency ID column and which is pointing to our ID column of the currency table. Actually, it has taken some good time to create this type of foreign key relationship using the EF CORE. But okay, we did it finally. To see the foreign key details of the table, go to the design view of the table. And then right click and then click the relationships menu. In this relationship model window, expand the tables and columns specification of the key from the right side grid. Notice the details. Foreign key base table is currencies. Foreign key column is exchange currency ID. Primary key base table is currency and primary key column is ID. That's it. So our foreign key is created properly. So close the SQL Server Management Studio and come back to the Visual Studio 2022. In here, click and expand the Interfaces folder. Then open the iProduct interface file and copy all code from it. Then right click the interfaces folder and select add and click new item and then select the item type as interface. Now give the file name as iCurrency.cs and click the add button to create the iCurrency.cs file. After that, paste the copied text from the clipboard memory and then change the interface name of the pasted text to iCurrency and delete all the unwanted codes. Then change the type of return list item of the getItems method also to currency. And then change the return type of the method getItem to currency from the product. Then after, change the return type of the create method to void because I wanted to do this CRUD in a slightly different way and wants to bring some advanced concepts and methodologies. Sorry, change the return type of the create method to boolean, not void. And then change the type of the input parameter of the create method to currency and change the name of the input parameter to currency. After that, copy the parameter type and parameter name from the create method. Then paste the copied text to the edit method parameters section and change the return type of the edit method also to boolean. And then do the same to the delete method also. Then come to the isItemExist method. Now change the second parameter type of the isItemExist method to integer and change the name of the parameter to ID. Then after, there are two method declarations in the name isItemCodeExist. From this, delete the first method declaration. And then change the name of the isItemCodeExist method to isCurrencyCombExist. After that, delete the parameters and add two parameters of type integers and name as source currency ID and exchange currency ID. Then load the Solution Explorer window and dock it to the right hand side. And then collapse the interfaces folder and select the repository folder because next we need to create the repository file for our currency interface which we just created. Right click the repository folder and select the add menu and click new item and after that select class as item type. Then in here give the name as currency repo and click the add button to scaffold the currency repo.cs file. Now in the currency repo file change the class declaration to implement from the iCurrency interface. Notice it is showing the error indicator because we have not implemented the interface. So click the show potential fix link. Then select and click the implement interface. After that, open the category repo.cs file and copy the implementation of create method and paste it here. Then after, open the category repo again and copy the read-only property of type inventory context and paste it over here. Then copy and paste the constructor method from the category repo.cs file. Change the constructor method name to currency repo. Actually, the constructor method name should match with the class name. Then in the create method, change all the occurrences of the word category to currency. After that, add a try block to the create method and put all the code to the try block. And add an exception handling catch block to the try block. Then add an exception variable named ex to the parenthesis and inside the catch block type return false. So if any error occurs while trying to save the model data to the database, then we return false to the caller method, I mean to the controller. Now the important thing comes. This is something new. We have not done like this before. So watch it carefully because this is one of the best way to pass the error information to the caller method. Open the iCurrency interface file and in here add a method declaration named getErrors with the return type as string. Then come back to the currency repo file. In here add a private string variable named _errors. This variable is very important, so please watch it carefully. Next, click the error indicator and select show potential fixes and click implement interface. Then locate the getErrors method and delete the default implementation which was provided by the clicking the implement interface link button. Then add a new implementation which will return the variable named errors to the caller method. Then come back to the catch block of the create method. In here set the private variable errors to SQL exception occurred and pass the error information to the user. Normally we don't pass the actual error information to the user. Instead we log the actual error info to the event viewer or a text file or a SQL table so that the developer can check and fix that for permanently. But user also needs to be informed that the data is not saved. So we may pass some general error information to the user like the data is not saved due to system failure. Please report this to the xyz@xyz.com. After that, let's do the next method. Next method is delete. So open the category repo.cs file and copy the code of the delete method. Then paste the copied code to the delete method of the currency repo. And change context.categories to context.currencies in the pasted code. After that, change the parameter name and parameter type of the pasted delete method to currency. And then change all the occurrences of the word category to currency. And then change the return value to true. After that, wrap up all the code of the delete method to a try block. Then copy the catch block from the create method and paste it to the delete method. And change the error message inside the catch block to delete failed instead of create failed. Next, copy the delete method and paste it to the edit method because edit method and delete method are very similar. After that, in the edit method, change the context.entry of currency.state to entity_state.modified. This is a very important line. This is the only difference between delete and edit methods. Then change the error message inside the catch block to update failed instead of delete failed. After that, open the category repo.cs file and copy the doSort method. Then paste the copied code to the currency repo.cs file. Then change the return type of the pasted doSort method to list of currency and change the first input parameter to list of currency. That's it with the doSort method. Next method is the getItem method. Open the category repo.cs file and copy the code of the getItem method from there. Then paste the copied code to the getItem method of the currency repo.cs file. After that, inside the getItem method, change all the occurrences of the word category to currency. That's it with the getItem method. Next method is getItems method. This is an important method. We need to do little extra work in this method. Let's first copy the all code from the getItems method of the category repo.cs file. Then paste the copied code to the getItems method of the currency repo.cs file. Then delete the default implementation code from the getItems method of the currency repo.cs file. And then change all the occurrences of the word category to currency. Okay, that's it with the getItems method. Next method is isItemExist method. Open the category repo.cs file and copy the code of the isItemExist method from there. Then paste the copied code to the isItemExist method of the currency repo. Then next method is isCurrencyCombExist method. Before going to the isCurrencyCombExist method, we need to do a small change in the isItemExist method. we forgot to change the context.categories to context.currencies. So change context.categories to context.currencies in the isItemExist method. Then open the category repo.cs file, and from here copy the second isItemExist method. This method is having two parameters. Last time we copied the isItemExist method which was having one parameter. Then paste the copied code to the currency repo.cs file. After that, change the word category to currency in the isItemExist method. Now we will do the isCurrencyComboExist method. Copy the code from the isItemExist method and paste it to the isCurrencyComboExist method. Then make the necessary changes to the method as shown. Okay, now we have completed creating the repository for our currency model. Next step is to create the currency controller. So load the Solution Explorer window and open the category controller from the controllers folder. Then copy all code of the category controller to the clipboard. In case if anyone wants to know what is clipboard, clipboard is a temporary memory where Windows keeps the copied content. And then right click the controllers folder and select the add menu and click the controller menu. After that, select the item type as MVC controller empty and click the add button. Then in the name text box, give the file name as currencycontroller.cs and click the add button. And now in here paste the copied text from the clipboard and remove the namespace microsoft.asp.core.mvc from the using section, because this is .NET 6 and we already added the required namespaces as global usings in the global.cs file. And next change the class name of the pasted text to currency controller. Then remove the default code which was generated by the wizard. Then rename the constructor method to currency controller. After that, change the type of the private repository variable to iCurrency and also change the parameter type of the constructor method to iCurrency. Then collapse the namespace curly bracket and remove both the parts of the bracket. Then after, add a semicolon after the namespace inclusion line. This I did just to show that the curly brackets are not required anymore for the namespace section in the .NET 6. After that, expand the class and locate the index method. And in the index method, change the item type of the paginated list to currency. Then scroll down to reach the create methods, and in the create methods change all occurrences of the word category to currency. Then in the HTTP post create method, delete the validation checking conditions. We are going to move all the server side validations to the repository, because controller should do only minimum work and we should try to keep the controller as lightweight. Then open the currency repo and add a private method named isDescriptionValid. Inside this method, paste the code which we had cut from the create method of the currency controller. Then add the parameter of type currency to the isDescriptionValid method. Then add a curly bracket to the if condition block and change the word error message to _errors. Then add return false to the if block. It means if the validation rule is broken, then return false, and outside of the if block add a line to return true. This line will be reached only if the if block condition is not true. Then go back to the currency controller and in the same way cut the second validation checking codes also from the create method of the currency controller. After that, open the create method of the currency repository and add all the validation checking methods here, and now our create method of controller and also the repository looks clean and easy to understand. So hereafter we will try to do this way. Then go to the isItemExist method of the currency repository and set the error message to the private variable _errors and then return true. Then change the create method of the currency controller as shown in the screen. Basically, we have removed all the validation codes and made the method to look simple, but it does the same work as before. After that, let's move to the details method. In here, change the word category to currency. That's it with this method. After that, scroll to the edit method. Edit has two methods, HTTP GET and HTTP POST methods. Change the word category to currency in the HTTP GET edit method first. Then move to the HTTP POST edit method. This method is little lengthy, but no worries, it looks very similar to the create method. We are going to do the same thing what we did in the create method. First, remove all the server-side validation checking codes from the HTTP POST edit method of the controller. Then after, open the getCurrency repo.cs file and locate the edit method. In here, we will add all the validation checking codes. First, scroll up to the create method and copy the first validation rule from it. Then scroll down to the edit method and paste the copied validation rule here. Then after, in the same way, copy the second validation rule from the create method and paste the copied method to the edit method as shown. But in the second validation rule for the edit method is slightly different. Here we need to call the isItemExist method with two parameters. So add the currency.id also to the method call. Okay, that's it with the edit method of the repository. Please make a note of it, but understanding is important than copying. So I request you guys to first watch the complete video and understand the logics. After that, you can do on your own. Then delete all the code from the try block of the edit action method. After that, scroll up to the create action method and copy all code from the try block of the create action method and paste it to the try block of the edit action method. Then change the pasted method called to edit and change parameter type to currency. And after that, copy the error message assigning line from the create action method and paste it to the edit action method. That's it with the edit action method. Then the next method is the delete method. In the delete HTTP get action method, change the model type to currency. After that, in the HTTP post delete method, change the parameter type to currency. And then change the repo.delete method call to return a boolean value, because the currency repos delete method is different from the category repo delete method. Then copy the error message setting block from the edit action method and paste it to the delete action method. After that, move the error message variable out of the try block so that it will be accessible throughout the delete action method. Okay, that's it with the delete action method. Next, let's start creating the views for the action methods. So, scroll up to locate the index action method. After locating the index method, right click on the method name and click add view. And in here, select Reza view and click the add button. After that, select list in the action template selection box. After that, select the model as currency and click the add button and wait for the scaffolding task to complete the creation of the index file. Okay, now the index page is created successfully. This is the file which was created by the scaffolding task. Open the layouts.cshtml from the shared folder which is inside the views folder. Then select and copy the last submenu item from the master's menu item. After that, paste the copied menu below and change the value of the ASP-controller to currency and change the menu text also to currency. Then let's build and run the application. After that, click the currency menu to load the listing screen of the currencies. Oh, errors. But this is a very silly error. We forgot to map the service class to the interface iCurrency. So open the program.cs file. But if you are still using the Visual Studio 2019, then you should open the startup.cs file. And in here, select and copy the service mapping line of product group repo and paste it below. Then change the interface of the service mapping line to iCurrency and change the service class name to currency repo. After that, build and run the application. And now click the currency menu. Yes, this time the listing screen is loaded properly. So our code is working fine. So far so good. But the listing screen is looking very odd without the search and pagination bars. So let's add the code to bring the search and pagination options to this listing screen. To do that, first open the index.cshtml file from the supplier folder and then copy the search and pagination logics from the supplier's index.cshtml. After that, go back to the index.cshtml of the currency folder. And in here, paste the copied codes from the clipboard. Then open the index.cshtml from the suppliers folder and copy the sorting logics to the clipboard. After that, paste the sorting logics from the clipboard to index.cshtml of the currency folder. Then make the necessary changes in the code to fit for the currency model. That's it. Build and run the application. Now the sorting icons, paging bars and the search bars are added to the currency listing screen. Then we will add the footer pagination bar also. To do that, open the index.cshtml from the suppliers folder and scroll to the bottom of the file, and there you can find the footer bar partial view. So please select and copy that footer bar div to the clipboard. After that, come back to the index.cshtml of the currency folder and scroll down to the bottom of the file. Then paste the copied text from the clipboard. After that, let's build and run the application. Notice now the footer pagination is also displayed properly. So we are done with the listing page. But when we click the create new button, we are getting error. This is because we had created view file only for the index section. So open the currency controller and locate the create action method. Then right click the method name and click add view. After that, select razor view. Then select action template as create and select model as currency and uncheck the partial view checkbox. Then click add and wait for the scaffolding task to complete. Wow, the create.cshtml has been scaffolded by the scaffolding task successfully. So let's build and run the application. Now click currencies and load the currency creation screen. In here, let's enter name as AED and description as United Arab Emirates Dirham. And leave the exchange currency as blank and enter the exchange rate as 1 and then press the create button. Great, our first currency is created successfully. We will make this as the base currency. Every software will have a base currency and all the values will be maintained in that base currency by default. Let's create one more currency. This time we will create INR, I mean Indian rupees. Notice the exchange currency is not populated. So let's go back to the create.cshtml to see what mistake we did. Actually I forgot to create the viewback variable for the exchange currency list. So copy and paste the viewback variable to the create method of the currency controller. After that, open the product controller and copy the get product group method. Basically, this method fills and returns a list of select items. Then paste the copied method code to the currency controller. After that, change the method name of the pasted code to getCurrencyList. Then change the list item type of the paginated list to currency. After that, change the text of the default select list item to select exchange currency. Then scroll up to locate the create method and in here set the viewback.exchangeCurrencyID equals to getCurrencyList. Then build and run the application and load the currency creation screen. And in here enter the INR as name and Indian rupees as description. Notice now the exchange currency is populated, so select AED as the exchange currency. Today's exchange rate of INR to AED is 0.047. It's very disappointing to see INR is falling down heavily. Now come back to the currency creation screen and enter the copied exchange rate value from the Google and press the create button. Okay, it has saved. But why it is showing us 0.05? It's supposed to show 0.047, right? Let's open the SQL Server Management Studio and check what is inserted to the database table. Here it is showing properly as 0.047. So no issue in saving. The issue is only in displaying. I think it rounds to 2 decimal point. So open the currency model and add the display format attribute to the exchange rate property. After that, save and run the application. Okay, now the issue is sorted out and the exchange rate is showing properly in 3 digits. Next, we will create the edit view. So go to the currency controller and right click on the edit method and click add view. Then select razor view and press add. And in here select the action template as edit. Then select the model class as currency. Then press add and wait for the scaffolding task to complete. Now the edit view file is created successfully. Let's load the edit screen to see the output. Everything is perfect, but the exchange currency select list is not filled and showing as empty. So go to the create action method of the currency controller and copy the viewback variable assigning code. Then paste the copied code to edit action method. After that, run the application and load the edit screen. Wow, now the select list is filled with the currency names. Let's set AED as the currency and save the currency. The record is saved successfully, so no issue in the edit module. Let's try loading the edit screen for AED again. Perfect, all the values are loaded properly. But one issue is there in the edit screen of the INR currency. Notice we entered 0.047 as the exchange rate for INR to AED, but here it is showing as 0.05, which is wrong. So to fix this issue, open the currency model and in the display format add apply format in edit mode equals to true and run the application. Load the currency listing screen and load the edit screen of the INR currency. Notice now it is showing properly, very easy, isn't it? Then if you see the supplier listing screen, the action links are decorated with font awesome icons. So I thought of applying the same styles to the currency listing screen. So load the index.cshtml from the supplier folder and copy the action links markup codes. After that, open the index.cshtml from the currency folder and paste the copied markup codes and delete the existing action links markup codes. Let's run the application to see the output. Click the currency menu. Yes, now the font awesome icons are loaded to the action links. But in the edit screen, still the bootstrap style is not applied to the buttons. So let's open the edit screen of supplier and copy the buttons markup codes to the clipboard. After that, open the edit.cshtml from the currency folder and paste the copied markup codes from the clipboard. Then after, open the create.cshtml from the supplier folder and copy the button markup codes to the clipboard. Then open the create.cshtml from the currency folder and paste the copied markup codes from the clipboard. Let's run the application and check the create and edit screen of our currency module. Well, the button styles are applied properly, but we forgot to remove the back to list link. So open the create and edit.cs HTMLs, then delete the back to list links from them. Now load the create and edit screens again. Wow, this time the button styles are applied properly and looking very nice. Then next we need to create the view file for details action method. So make a copy of the edit.cs HTML. Then rename the pasted file to details.cs HTML. After that, open the details.cs HTML and add the read-only attribute to all the text box input controls and delete the validation span elements. Since we are not going to change any of the values and all the values are read-only, there is no use of the span elements. After that, open the details.cs HTML from the supplier folder and copy the action links div. Then open details.cs HTML from the currency folder and delete the existing action links div and paste the copied action links div from the clipboard. After that, remove the form tag from the details.cs HTML because we should not give any option for the user to submit the values from a details form. Now let's build and run the application. Then click the details link button to see the output. The details screen is loaded but with some issues. The first issue is it is still showing us edit as the heading. Second is the exchange select list is empty, so we need to fill this. Go to the currency controller and select the details method and add the code to fill the viewback.exchange currency ID. Then run the application to check the output. Now the exchange currency name is showing properly. After that, make a copy of details.cs HTML and change the copy of the details file name to delete.cs HTML because delete and details view files looks very similar. But delete file requires a form to post, so let's add a form tag above the parent div and close the form tag. Then open the delete.cs HTML from the supplier folder and copy the button controls div and paste the buttons controls div to the delete.cs HTML of the currency folder. After that, delete the old action links div. Then open the currency controller and copy the viewback object named exchange currency ID and paste the copied viewback object to the delete action method. Let's load the delete screen of the currency item. Yes, it is loaded properly. Then we will try to delete the currency with a name as AED. Oh, it is not deleted. It is throwing an error without the error details. We cannot fix this error without the details. So, in the delete method of the currency repo, we will catch the inner exception of the main exception and pass the error message of the inner exception to the output screen. Let's try to delete the currency again. This time we get the complete error information. We are not able to delete the currency named AED because it is referenced by the currency named INR. But we can delete the INR currency because no currency is referred to the INR currency. Let's try deleting it. Yes, as I told you, the INR currency got deleted. But we need the INR currency, so let's create it again. Then we will create one more currency called USD currency because all the transactions happening in India and UAE are mostly done on USD currency. That's it. We are done with the currency model. Hey, don't go away. I have not finished yet. Now only the important module is going to come. Yes, let's do the purchase order module. Hello all, making YouTube video takes lot of time and efforts. But all these efforts should have a meaning. So please like, comment and share this video. Thanks a lot. Let's continue to the tutorial. Please do not forget to subscribe to this channel and press the bell icon to get notified. Right click the models folder and click add and then click the new item menu. In here give the file name as pivoheader.cs file and press the add button to create the pivoheader.cs file. Then create the first property named as ID. This property will be the primary key of the table. So add the data annotation attribute of type key. And then create the next property named as pivot number of type string. After that, add the max length data attribute and set the value of the max length to 15. Then the next property is supplier ID and this property is of type int. This is a mandatory property, so add the required attribute to the property head. And then add the required attribute also to the pivot number, that is also a mandatory property. After that, add the virtual navigation property named as supplier of type supplier entity. This property is very important for creating foreign key and relationships. And then add the foreign key attribute to the property head of the supplier ID property. Then our next property is pivot date. We will make this property as a date only property. Actually, I have not used date only data type so far. I used to use always date time data type instead, but this time let's try with the date only property. After that, add the required attribute to this property also. Then add data type attribute and set the value as date to the data type attribute. Next, create the property named base currency ID of type integer. This is also a very important property and going to be a foreign key. Then add the required attribute to the base currency ID property also. After that, create the navigation property for the base currency ID property. This navigation property is of type currency and name this property as base currency. Then add the foreign key attribute to the base currency ID property head. Then copy the base currency ID and base currency properties and paste it below. And change the property name of the pasted property to PO currency ID. And change the name of the navigation property to PO currency. Then change the foreign key name of the PO currency ID to PO currency. After that, open the currency model and copy the exchange rate property from there. Then paste the exchange rate property to the PO header model. After that, add a property named discount percent of type decimal. Next, add a property named quotation number of type string. This is a required property. So, add the data type annotation required attribute to the property head. Then the next property is quotation date. This is of type date. Then add a property named payment terms of type string and set the max length attribute to 500. After that, copy the payment terms property and paste it below, and then rename the pasted property to remarks. Okay, that's it with the PO header model. Then open the inventory context.cs file and add this PO header model to the dbset property list. Next, go to the NuGet package manager console and there type --migration space create PO headers and press enter to execute the command. Oh no, we got error. This error occurs due to the date only data type. Really sorry for this. I should have not used this because I told you, right, I have not used this in any of my real-time projects. So go back to the PO header model and change the PO date property to date time. And then change the data type of quotation date also to date time. After that, go back to the package manager console window. Then type --migration space creating PO header and press enter to execute the command. Great, this time the command executed successfully. After that, type update dash database and press enter to execute. This is also showing some errors. No worries, we will fix this error. Guys, if I want to, I could have hidden all the errors and show only the successful executions alone. But that is not the right approach. All knowledge needs to be transferred. So allow me to show all the hurdles I faced during the development of this project. Okay, come to the project. Actually, the issue is we have two foreign keys referring to the same table and same column. I mean, the PO currency ID and the base currency ID columns refer to the ID column of the currency table. But it is not possible to have both the column to have on-delete cascade relation type. So open the creating poheader.cs migration file and in here change the relationship referential action to referential action dot no action for the base currency ID column. After that, do the same for the PO currency ID column also. Then run the update database command now. Wow, this time the command is executed successfully. Then let's go to the SQL server to see the table which we just created. In here, explore the tables collection and expand the columns of the PO headers table. Important point here is we have 3 foreign key columns in this table. Then expand the keys folder. In here we can see the list of all primary and foreign keys of the table. Next we need to create the detail table, I mean the PO detail model. So right click the models folder and click add new item. And select class as the item type and give the file name as PO detail.cs. And click add to generate the file. Then add a property named id of type integer and make this property as the primary key of the table by adding the key attribute to the property head. After that, copy the supplier ID column along with the navigation property from the PO header model and paste it to the PO detail model. Then change the name of the pasted property to PO ID and change the name of the navigation property to PO header and make the type of the property also to PO header. After that, change the name value of the foreign key attribute to PO header. And then copy the PO ID and PO header properties. And then paste it below. After that, change the name of the pasted property to product ID and change the navigation property name to product. And then change the name value of the foreign key attribute to product. After that, add the property named quantity of type decimal. Actually, integer is enough for quantity property, but in this project we need to store decimal values also in the quantity column. Next, open the currency model and copy the exchange rate property and paste it to PO detail model. Then change the name of the pasted property to FOB. FOB means freight on board or free on board. In short and simple, FOB is nothing but it is the supplier's price in the foreign currency. Then copy and paste the FOB property below and change the name of the pasted property to price or price in base currency. And then add a property named description of type string. Please note this property is having an attribute called not mapped. It means this property will not be stored in the database table and no columns will be created for this property in the database table. Then copy the description property and paste it below. After that, change the pasted property name to unit name. And next property is deleted property. This property is also a not mapped property. It is mainly used for master detail screen. I mean my way of master detail. As you know, this is a unique way and nobody has done master detail screens in this way. So please have a look on the properties of our model. All the properties are important here. In case if you want to take a screenshot, please take a screenshot and save it to your machine. Then open the inventory context.cs file and add the PO details as the dbset property. I know this tutorial is going long, but guys listen, this is one of the best master detail technology, and when I found this I was very happy. In fact, I tried many times before succeeding on this. But now I am able to do this type of master details in any technology, say it as Java or VB.NET or PHP or React, anything. This can be done on any language. So grab the idea. That's very important. And then go to the Package Manager console window. Then type add migration space create PO details. And then press enter to execute the command. Oh, errors again. But it is okay, we will fix this error. Actually, this error comes because we created product ID as integer, but the product code, which is the primary key of the product table, is string. We cannot create a relationship between integer type to string type. So open the PO details model and change the name of the property product ID to product code and change the data type of the property to string. After that, go back to the Package Manager console window and do the add migration for the PO details again. Wow, this time the migration got succeeded. And next, type the command update-database and press enter to execute. Wow, update database also executed successfully. Let's go to the SQL Server and see the table which we created. So refresh the tables collection of our database. Yes, the table is created properly. Expand the columns of the table. Notice we have two foreign key columns in this table. The first foreign key is with the PO headers table and the second foreign key is with the products table. Then now we are going to the important step, so listen carefully. Open the PO header model and scroll down to the bottom of the file. After that, create a collection property of type PO details and name it as PO details. This property is very important. Without this, we cannot save the master and detail records together. Then set this property to a list of empty PO details. After that, go to Package Manager console window and in here type add-migration space adding PO details list. Then press enter and wait for the migration command to complete. Then type the update database command and press enter to execute. That's it. Now the models are created and also updated to the database table. Next, we need to create the interface and repository files. So to create interface, right click the interfaces folder and right click and select add and then click the new item menu. In here, select the item type as interface and give the name as I purchase order and click the add button. Now the empty interface file is created by the scaffolding task. Open the iSupplier interface file and copy all the content of it and paste it to the iPurchaseOrder interface file. After that, change the list type of the paginated list to PO header in the getItems method. Then change the return type of the getItem method to PO header. And then change the return and parameter type of the create method to PO header. And change the input parameter of edit and delete method also to PO header. After that, change the return type of edit and delete method to PO header. Then change the method name is supplier exists to is PO number exists. Then copy is PO number exists and paste it below and add a parameter type integer and name id to the is PO number exists method. Then after delete the methods named is supplier code exists and is supplier email exists method. Then copy is PO number exists methods and paste it below. After that, change the pasted method name to is quotation number exists. Then change the input parameter of both the methods to QO number from PO number. Okay, that's it with the interface. Next, we need to create the repository to implement this interface. Right click the repositories folder and click add followed by the new item menu. Then select the item type as class in item types options dialog box and then give name as the purchase order repo.cs for the file name and click the add button to scaffold the repository file. After that, open the product repo.cs file and copy all the code from it to the clipboard. Then paste the copied content from the clipboard to the purchase order repo.cs file. And then rename the class name of the pasted file to purchase order repo and implement the class from the iPurchaseOrder interface. And next, rename the constructor method to class name, to purchase order repo, because the constructor method should always match with the class name. After that, in the create method, change the input parameter name and type to PO header. And then change the return type of the create method also to PO header. And next, change the context.products to context.poheaders.add of PO header and return the PO header. Sorry, slight change in the implementation. Instead of returning the PO header, we will return a boolean value to inform the status of the method. So change the return type to boolean. After that, add a boolean variable named redval with the default value of false. Then change the return value to redval from the PO header. After that, open the interface file of the purchase order and in here change the return type of the methods create, edit and delete to bool. Of course, in the world of programming, specs always gets changed. If specs are freezed in the early stage, then something wrong with the client or the team. So be careful. And next, open the iCurrency interface file and copy the method declaration of getErrors and paste it to the iPurchaseOrder interface file. Then open the purchase order repository file and add a private variable named _errors to the purchase order repository. And then add a method named getErrors to the purchase order repository file. This method will return the value stored in the private variable named _errors. After that, open the currency repo.cs file and see the code of the create method and understand it. We are going to change the create method code of our purchase order also similar to this. Now open the purchase order repository file and add try block and wrap all codes of the create method inside it and add an exception block to handle the errors. Then set the private variable _errors to 0-length string, because there is a possibility that the previous method call may have set some values to the errors variable. That's it with the create method of the purchase order repository. So please take a snapshot. Next, we will do the delete method. First, change the return type of the delete method to boolean, and then change the input parameter type and name of the delete method to PO header. Then add return false. We will do this delete method later. Likewise, do the same to the edit method also. We will do the coding for these methods later. So now our priority is to complete the coding for the supporting methods required for create and get items method. Then go to the doSort method. In here, change the list type of the input parameter to PO header. And then change the return type of the doSort method also to the list of PO header. Then change the first sort property name checking condition to check for PO number and change the order by to order by PO number. After that, change the next sort field checking for quotation number and change the order by to order by quotation number. Then after, come to the else block. In this else block, change the sort field to PO date in the if condition and change the order by to order by PO date. That's it with the doSort method. Let's go to the getItems method. This is a very important method, so please listen carefully. In the getItems method, first change the context.products to context.PO headers. Then change the type of the variable item to list of PO header. After that, in the where condition, change end.name to end.PO number and change the end.description to end.quotation number because we don't have name and description columns in the PO headers table. After that, in the include extension method, change end.units to end.suppliers because the PO headers table has a foreign key column from the supplier table. So we need to include the supplier entity to list the fields from the suppliers table. Then in the same way, include the currency table for the base currency so that we can display the base currency name in the listing screen. And then include the currency table again. This time the currency table is included to fetch the currency name for the PO currency. Since we have two columns in the PO headers table which are referenced to the currency table, we need to include the currency table two times. Then copy the code from the if block and paste it to the else block. After that, remove the where condition from the else block. And then change the return list type of paginated list to pivot header and change the parameter type also to the list of pivot header. After that, change the return type of the getItems method also to the list of pivot header. Okay, that's it with the getItems method. Let's go to the getItem method. Then in the getItem method, change the return type of the getItem method to pivot header. After that, change the input parameter type to int and name the parameter as id. Then change the context.products to context.pivotHeaders. And in the where condition, change the end.code to end.id because pivotHeader table does not have any column called code. It has only the id column. After that, remove the include method part from the link statement. We are not going to populate the supplier table here. Then add the include method to include the details table. I mean the pivot details table because this is a master detail concept. So we need to populate the corresponding pivot detail records with the header record. Okay, that's it with the getItem method. After that, delete the getBriefPhotoName method. We don't need this method here. And then change the method name of isItemExist to isPivotNumberExist. After that, change the context.products to context.pivotHeaders and change the end.name to end.pivotNumber in the link statement. And then change the name of the input parameter to pivotNumber from name. After that, rename the overloaded version of isItemExist method name to isPivotNumberExist. And then in the overloaded version of the isPivotNumberExist method, change the first parameter name to pivotNumber and change the second parameter type to int and name to id. And then change the condition of the if statement to id equals to 0. Then if the id is equals to 0, call the isPivotNumberExist method with single parameter. I mean pass only the pivot number to the isPivotNumberExist method so that the first method will get called. After that, change the variable name strcode to pivotnum and set this pivotnum to context.pivotHeaders dot and in the where condition change the end.pivotNumber equals to pivotNumber and max of ct equals to ct.id. And then change the if condition in the next line to if pivotHeads equals to 0 or pivotHeads equals to id, then return false, else return true. Okay, that's it with the isPivotNumberExist method. Let's go to the next method. The next method is quotation number exists. So open the I purchase order interface file and copy the method name from the method declaration. And then rename the method is item code exists to is quotation number exists and change the parameter name to quotation number. After that, change the word item code in the link statement to quotation number. And change the context.products to context.po headers. And then change the end.code to end.quotation number in the link statement. After that, we will also change the overloaded version of the isItemCodeExist method to isQuotationNumberExist. And then change the name of the parameter to quotation number in the overloaded version of isQuotationNumberExist. And then change the second parameter type to integer and second parameter name to id and assign a default value of 0 to it. And then change the if condition to check for if id equals to 0. And if the id is equals to 0, reroute the call to the first method, I mean to the method which has only the PO number. After that, change the name of the variable from strname to strqo number and change the context.products to context.po headers. And then change the word end.code and item code to quotation number and end.name to end.id. After that, in the if statement, change the variable name from strname to strQuotationNumber. Then come to the else part of the if condition and delete the existing code and add a new line to return the true value to the caller method. Okay, we are now done with the purchase order repository. I mean not done, but we have completed the codes required for create listing and purchase order creation screens. So let's create the controller. Right click the controllers folder and click add and then click controller menu. And then select the first option, I mean MVC controller empty, and click the add button. After that, give the name of file as purchase order controller.cs and click the add button. Now the empty controller is scaffolded and ready for modifications. Open the currency controller.cs file and copy the index action method. And then paste the copied code from the clipboard to purchase order controller. After that, copy the private read-only variable and the constructor method from the currency controller to the clipboard. And then paste the copied code from the clipboard to the purchase order controller. Then add the authorize attribute to the class head of the purchase order controller. After that, rename the constructor method to match with the controller name, because the constructor method name should always match with the class name. Then change the interface type of the private variable to iPurchaseOrder. And next, change the parameter type of the constructor method to iPurchaseOrder. After that, go to the index action method of the controller. And in here, change the list type of the paginated list to list of PO header. That's it with the index method. Please take screenshot of the method. After that, go to the currencycontroller.cs file and collapse both the create action methods and copy them to the clipboard. And then open the purchase order controller and paste them there. Then command the viewback.exchange currency ID from HTTP create action and change the type of the variable name item to PO header and then set it to the new instance of the PO header. After that, go to the HTTP post create action method and in here change the input parameter type to PO header and then call the repository.create method. If there is any error from the repository, then catch the error and raise the error to the user. And then check the value of the bold rate variable. If the value of the bold rate variable is false, then collect the error information from the repository and pass it to the output screen through temp data. And if the bold rate value is true, then pass the success message to the output screen through the temp data. That's it with the create action method. Please take a snapshot of the same. Next, go to the program.cs file. In case if you are using Visual Studio 2019 or earlier versions, no worries, go to the startup.cs file, not a big difference. Then in here, copy the service mapping line of the currency interface and paste it below. After that, change the interface to iPurchaseOrder and repository to purchaseorder repo. And then select the name of the index method and right click and then click add view. In here, select razor view and click add. After that, select the list in the template selection box. And then next, select the PO header in the model selection box. After that, click the add button to start the scaffolding process. Then wait patiently for the scaffolding task to get complete. Actually, the scaffolding task is taking little longer, so please wait. Yes, now the scaffolding task is completed and the PO headers index.cs HTML file is generated successfully. After that, click the shared folder and expand it. And then select the layout.cs HTML and open it. Then close the Solution Explorer so that we will have a complete coverage of the HTML markups. In here, copy the masters menu and collapse the masters menu and then paste the copied masters menu below. Then change the menu text of the copied menu to transactions and close the li tag. After that, expand the masters menu and copy the first item from the masters menu. Then collapse the masters menu and come to the transactions menu and paste the copied UL item to it. After that, close the UL tag because it is open. And then change the ASP-controller to purchase order in the first li item of the transaction menu. And then change the menu text also to purchase order. After that, save and run the application. Wow, the application is loaded now. Click the login menu to login. Let's enter username as tester and enter the password of the user tester and then press the login button. Click the purchase order menu from the transactions menu. Well, the basic screen of the purchase order listing screen is loaded, but this is not the final screen, so don't worry, we will beautify this later. Actually, the listing screen is having many fields, so I want to remove few fields. It will be better if we remove the base currency and payment terms. These fields we don't want to list it here. So open the index.cshtml from the purchase order folder. From here, remove the base currency and payment terms from the heading row and detailed rows. Then build and run the application. Now click the purchase order menu again. This time the screen is loaded properly. Then stop the application and load the Solution Explorer. From here, load the purchase order controller. In here, select the create method and click the add view button. Then in the view selection box, select razor view and click add button. Then select the create action in the action template selection box. And in the model selection box, select PO header as the model class. And then click add to start the scaffolding process. Then wait for few minutes patiently and allow the scaffolding task to complete. Well, now the scaffolding task is completed and created the create.cshtml file successfully for us. From the transactions menu, click the purchase order menu and click the create button. Notice the create screen is having only the columns of the PO header table. The PO details table columns are not generated by the scaffolding task because the scaffolding task has no knowledge on how to create the master detail screen. So we will create by ourselves. Open the create.cshtml file and then create a div with cart bootstrap class. Inside this div, we are going to create our master detail screen. Then collapse the row div. Now close the cart div by wrapping the row div inside the cart div. Then remove the div which is having the back to list link. And then of the recording, I have created this purchase order screen. I will explain how I created this one. This looks nice, isn't it? Let me slowly show you the complete code and explain it. First, I have created a form and then inside the form I have created a div with bootstrap class row with the full column size. I mean called as 12. Then this div is called the validation summary div. Every MVC form will have this to show the error summary. And this line creates the label for PO number and controls for the PO number. It also creates the validation span for the PO number column. And then this div is to create empty space between the two divs, because we are going to have two columns, so we want to have some space between these two columns. Then this markups will create the label and controls for the PO date column. After that, the selected markups will create the select box for the supplier column, and note that the ASP-items is set to viewback.supplier_id, so that we can fill all the supplier names in this select list and the user can select the supplier from it. Then this markup is for the base currency ID column. I mean, this markup will create the select box for the base currency ID. All the currencies will be added to this select box. After that, this markup is for the PO currency column. I mean, this markup will create the select box for the PO currency ID. Then the selected markups are for the exchange rate column. This will create the label and text box control for the exchange rate with the validation span. And this one is for the quotation number. This will create the label and control for the quotation number field with the validation span. Then after that, the selected markups will create controls for the quotation date column. This will create label and date picker control for the quotation date column with the validation span. Likewise, I have highlighted the code for the payment terms and the remarks column. Then this code will create the button controls. This is very important, so please note it down carefully. Then this purchase order creation screen is a master detail screen and it requires the script section. Here we are going to write lot of scripts, so please add this section. Okay, with this the header part of the screen is completed. Let me do the detail section of the record and explain you. I have completed the markups for the detailed section. Let me explain you line by line. First, create a div and inside it create a table and give the ID for the table as code as table. This ID is very important, so give the ID correctly. After that, let's create a header row of the table. This header row will have the column headings for the columns product, quantity, FOB, price, unit, and the last column space is for the add button. On clicking this add button, new row will be added to the table in runtime using the JavaScript. This table is added above the button controls. Let's run and check the output on screen. Wow, now we got the header row of the table with add button. But if we click the add button now, nothing will happen because we have not written any code to its click event so far. We will write the code later. Now let's add the table body inside this table. Add an index based for loop iteration. Do not use the for each loop iteration because for each iteration will not fit here. For more info, please watch my master detail CRUD part 1. The video link is in the description. For loop variable starts with 0 and it will run the loop till the value of I reaches the PODetails.count. Please make sure you start the loop variable I with 0. Then inside this for loop block, we are going to create the HTML markups for the detailed row. Before creating the markups, we need to do a small change in the create action method of the purchase order controller. So open the purchase order controller and locate the create action method. I mean the one with the HTTP GET verb. In here, add a line item.podetails.add of new PO details and set the default value of 1 to the ID of the default item. This is a very important line because we are adding here an empty item to the PO details. This is going to help us in the view file. After that, go back to the create.cs HTML file which is inside the purchase order folder of the views folder. Inside the for loop iteration, I have created the markups for the detailed row of the purchase order. I will explain you all the lines one by one now. Inside the first TD tag, we created the input control for product code. All input controls inside this loop are index based. Example, the first row will have 0 index. Likewise, I have created the input control for all the columns of pivot detail table using the ASP dash for tag helper. Then in the last column of the detail row, I have placed the delete button. On clicking this delete button, the row will be deleted. Then let's see the output of the code in the screen. Wow, the first row is created, but still we have not yet written any code for the add and the delete button. Actually, the product code is a foreign key column in the pivot detail table. It would be better if we give the user option to select the items from the select list instead of text box. So to do this, let's go to the purchase order controller and there create a private read-only variable of type iProductInterface. This interface variable will be given a respective class instance by the dependency injection when required. After that, add one more parameter of type iProduct to the constructor method of the purchase order controller. And then set the private variable underscore product repo to the parameter variable named product repo. Then of the recording, I have created the method named getProducts to populate all the products of the products table to the list of select list item. So please take a screenshot of the getProducts method. After that, come back to the create method and in here add a viewback variable named product list and set the resulted select list of the getProducts method to the viewback.productList. After that, open the create.cs HTML file from the purchase order folder. Then in here comment the input control creation line for the product code. Instead of that, add a select list control for the product code column of the pivot detail. Then let's build and run the application. Wow, we got the select list control and it is also filled with all the products of the products table. Now it becomes easy for the user to select the product instead of entering the product code. And now the purchase order entry screen has got a shape and looking very nice. This is one of the best master detail user interface. Now of the recording, I will write the required JavaScript methods to make the add and delete buttons to work. First method is add item method. This method will add the row to the pivot details grid. This is very important method and little bit advanced features of JavaScript is used on this method. So please listen and notice carefully. I will explain all the lines of the method. First, declare a variable named table and set this variable to document.getElementById of codes table. Our detailed table ID is codes table, so we are getting that table by ID and setting its address to this variable. Then after, we are getting reference to all the rows of this table and get the outer HTML of the last row. After that, we need to get the index of that row. The index will be rows.length minus 2. But why minus 2? Assume we have only one row, the row index will be 0. How 0? Let me explain. Even though we have only one row, but rows.length will be 2 because table header is also treated as a row and it is also counted. So one head row and one detailed row. Totally we get 2. Next, we need to create the ID for our new dynamic row. This ID should be continuous number, and if you miss this sequence, then the detailed records will not be saved properly. So the next row ID will be eval of last row ID plus 1. Notice the 3 lines boxed in green. These are very important lines. So again I am telling, please listen carefully and copy correctly, and mainly understand it. That's very important. If you understand this concept properly, then you can create thousands of tutorials like this without referring to any videos or sites. In the first line, we search for the last row ID with prefix and suffix as underscore. If we find anything, then we are changing last row ID to the next row ID. Likewise, in the next line, we search for last row ID with prefix and suffix as square bracket. Again, if you find anything, we change the last row ID to new row ID. Lastly, we search for last row ID with prefix and suffix as hyphen. If we find anything, then we change the last row ID to new row ID. Then after we insert a row to the table, this row will be added at the bottom of the table. Next, we set the inner HTML of the newly created row to the modified row outer HTML, which will have the markups to create the input controls. After that, we are iterating through all the controls of the newly created row and setting default value of blank for text boxes and 0 for the numeric text boxes. Otherwise, it will have the value of the previous row. Now set the onClick event of the add button to call the add item method. After that, build and run the application. Then click the create new link to load the purchase order creation screen. In here, click the add button to add rows to the detail table. Let's click the add button. Notice now the add button is working fine. It has added row below the first row. So our add item JavaScript is working fine. Let's click the add button again. See, it has added one more row. So we can add as many rows as we want. And then the select list also filled for all rows with the product details. Now let's click the delete button. But nothing has happened on clicking the delete button, because we have not written any code for the delete button so far. So let's open the create.cshtml file to write the code for the delete button. Delete item is so simple. Create a method named delete item and add a parameter named btn. This btn will be passed by the clicking button. Then it deletes the row in which the button resides using the jQuery method btn.closest_of_tr.remove. Please make a note and copy the code of the delete button, and also notice that I have specified width equals to 60px for this column so that the buttons are aligned properly with the add button. Now let's build and run the application. In here, press the add button to add rows. Now click the delete button. Wow, this time the delete button also working fine. It has deleted the selected row. Let's delete one more row. Perfect, it is working fine in the way we were looking for. Let's delete one more row. Yes, it has deleted. Now let's click the delete button again. Oh no, it has deleted the first row also. This is a bug. Why it is bug? Let me explain. Look, if we press the add button now, it will add only the header row because there is no detail row available to clone or copy. Let's check this. See, it has cloned the header row and added it to the table. So this is of no use. We must fix this bug urgently. Off the record, I have modified the delete item method to fix that bug. Let me explain the code. Now I have added a condition to check the number of rows present in the table. If the row's length is equals to 2, then we raise an alert saying this row cannot be deleted and cancel the delete action. Then let's go to the output screen and click the add button few times to add some rows to the table. Now click the delete button. Okay, one row is deleted. Then click the delete button again. Yes, one more row is deleted. So the delete button is working fine. Then now delete the first row also. This also deleted. Now the interesting thing is going to happen. Let's click the delete button again. Wow, this time we are getting the alert message saying this row cannot be deleted. Perfect. It does not matter how many times we click the delete button, it will not allow us to delete the detailed row when only one row is present in the table. Now add one more row and try deleting the newly added row. Yes, it got deleted. So our script is working perfectly as expected. Again, it will not allow us to delete the detailed row when only one row is present in the table. Then let's open the model file for pivot detail. In here I have added validation rules for some of the properties like quantity, FOB and price. Actually, bringing the validation to work in the detail grid is little challenging. Let's build and run the application to check if our output screen is showing the validation errors in the detail grid. We will press the create button to check the client side jQuery validations. Notice validation spans becomes visible with the error messages in the header and detailed columns. So without satisfying the validation requirements, we cannot submit the form. That's great, isn't it? Now let's add one more detailed row and press the create button. Oh no, we have problem here. The validation rules are fired only for the first row and no error messages are shown for the second row. Why like that? Let me explain. This is because Microsoft has used jQuery libraries for doing the client-side validations in ASP.NET Core and even in MVC. One disadvantage of jQuery is it does not track the items which are added dynamically by the JavaScript at runtime. So to fix this issue, we need to unbind all the controls of the form from the jQuery. Then we must rebind all the controls of the form. I mean all controls inclusive of the dynamic controls. After that, the validation will work fine for our dynamic controls as well. Let's see this in action. Off the record, I have written the method named Rebind Validators. If you notice this method, it exactly does what I said. I mean, first it gets the reference to the form object and then it unbinds the form. After that, makes all the validators to null. Then the validator jQuery library passes the form to add all the controls to the jQuery object collection. And then it enables the validations to all controls whichever has the validation rule. Make sure the ID of the form is spelled correctly, otherwise it will not work. Then scroll down to locate the add item method and call the rebind validators method at the last line of the add item. Please watch the screen carefully and cross-check all the codes of the add item method. Now let's build and run the application. Now click the add button and press the create button. Notice the validation errors are shown for all the rows. So the rebind validators method is doing the miracles for us. Let's type the number 0 in the quantity, FOB and price text boxes of the second row and press the add button. Notice now the validation messages are different because the quantity, FOB and price properties has two validation rules. First rule is required rule and the second rule is the value should be greater than 0. Then delete the last two rows and try to post the form. The form is not posted and the focus has been sent to PO number text box because PO number is a required field. Then the supplier ID, base currency and PO currency select list boxes are empty. So we must fill this so that the user can select the list values from it. So expand the controllers folder and open the purchase order controller.cs file. In here, copy the read-only variable named underscore product repo and paste it below. After that, change the repository type to iSupplier. Then change the variable name to underscore supplier repo. After that, copy the read-only variable supplier repo and paste it below. And change the variable type to iCurrency. Then change the variable name to currency repo. After that, go to the constructor method and pass these newly added repository types, I mean the iSupplier and iCurrency, to the constructor's parameters. Then in the constructor method, set the read-only variables underscore supplier repo and underscore currency repo to the parameter values supplier repo and currency repo respectively. Then scroll down to the bottom of the controller file and copy the getProducts method. Then paste the copied method from the clipboard. After that, change the pasted method name to getSuppliers. And change the list variable name to LST suppliers. After that, change the list type of the paginated list to supplier and change the list variable name to suppliers. And change the repository to supplier repo. Then changed LST products to LST suppliers and set LST suppliers to suppliers.select of sp equals to new of select item and set the value to sp.id.toString and text to sp.name. Then add a variable named def item and set it as the default select list item and change the text property of the default select list item to select supplier. And then change the word LST products to LST suppliers in the below lines. Then copy the method name and scroll up to locate the create action method. In here, copy the viewback.productList and paste it below. Then change getProducts to getSuppliers in the pasted line. After that, change viewback.productList to viewback.supplierList. And then copy the word viewback.supplierList and open the create.cshtml file from the purchase order folder, which is inside the views folder. And in here set asp-items to viewback.supplierList in the supplier ID select list control. Then build and run the application. Now let's click the create new link and click the supplier ID select list box. Notice now all the supplier names are listed in the supplier list box. Next we need to do the same for the base currency and for the PO currency list boxes. Go to the purchase order controller again and scroll down to the bottom of the file. Then copy the get suppliers method and paste it below. Then we are going to repeat the same steps now. Rename the method name of the pasted code to get PO currencies. And then change the variable name to LST currencies. After that, change the list type of the paginated list to currency. And then change the name of the paginated list variable to currencies and change the supplier repo.getItems to currency repo.getItems. After that, in the next line, change the LST suppliers to LST currencies. Then change suppliers.select to currencies.select. After that, change the text of the default select list item to select PO currency from select supplier. Then change the word LST suppliers to LST currencies in the next two lines. And now copy the get PO currencies method name and scroll up to locate the create action method. And in here add a new line and type viewback.PO currency list to get PO currencies. Then copy the word viewback.PO currency list. After that, open the create.cshtml file from the purchase order folder, which is inside the views folder. Then in here change the word viewback.PO currency ID to viewback.PO currency list. Then build and run the application. Now in the output screen we are able to see the supplier list and PO currency list as well. Next we need to fill the base currency list. That is very easy. Need to repeat the steps of the PO currency. So go back to the purchase order controller and scroll down to the bottom of the file. And in here copy the method named getPO currencies and paste it below. Then change the method name of the pasted code to getBaseCurrencyList. And now the important line is going to come, so please watch it carefully. Since we are dealing all the purchases in AED in UAE, I am going to pass AED in the search parameter of the getItems method. Type AED as the value to the search parameter. And change the text of the default list item to select base currency. Now copy the method name getBaseCurrencies and scroll up to locate the create action method. And in here paste the copied method and then copy the viewback.PO currency list and paste it below. Then set viewback. pivot currency list to get base currency list. Then change viewback.pivot currency list to viewback.base currency list in the pasted line. After that, open the create.cshtml file from the folder named purchase order, which is inside the views folder. And in here, change the ASP-items to viewback.baseCurrencyList from viewback.baseCurrencyID. Then build and run the application. And now in the create purchase order screen, all the select list boxes are filled. I mean suppliers, pivot currencies and base currencies. But notice in the base currency select list box only has AED. This is because we set search parameter to AED in the get base currency list method, so the user cannot select any other option for the base currency. Okay, now let's click the create button and see what happens. Detailed row validations are working fine, but in the header section, some of the fields validations are not working. So let's find and fix that issue also. Okay, found the issues. Actually, we forgot to add the validation spans to some of the controls. Let's add the validation span manually to the supplier ID select list control. Likewise, we will add the validation span element to the base currency ID select list control. Next, we will add the validation span element to the pivot currency ID select list control. Since base currency ID and pivot currency ID are similar, we will copy the span element from the base currency ID and rename it to pivot currency ID. After that, let's build and run the application. Now let's click the create button. Now all the validation error span elements are displayed. So our coding is working exactly the way we wanted to. The pivot date control and quotation date controls are showing the default value of the datetime data type, but it looks very odd. So it will look nice if we change it to the system date. Open the pivot header model from the models folder and set the default value for pivot date to now.date. This will set the system current date. Likewise, locate the quotation date and set now.date as the default value for it. Then build and run the application. Click the create new link button. Notice now the pivot date and quotation date is set to system date. Let's make our first purchase order entry in our inventory management system. So give the pivot number as PO0001. Then leave the pivot date as it is and select the supplier as ABC Governments and select the base currency as AED. Of course, that is the only option available to select. And then select the pivot currency ID also as AED. Then enter exchange rate as 1. It's supposed to fetch from the database. Exchange rate should be read only, but still that part is not ready. So no worries, we will do it soon. Then enter quotation number as QUO0001 and set the quotation date as per the received quotation. Then come to the detail grid section. In here, for the first row, select product as black shirt and enter quantity as 25. Then enter FOB as 15. After that, enter price also as 15. Then click the add button to add the next row. Then select Fanta Small as the product for the second row. And enter 50 as the quantity and 2 as FOB and 2 as the price. Unit is showing blank. This also needs to be fetched from the database. we will do this also soon, no worries. So for now, enter pieces in both the unit boxes manually, but eventually we will make this as a read-only text box and will populate the corresponding unit name of the selected product. After entering the units, press the create button to save the purchase order. Wow, the purchase order got saved. So nice, isn't it? But this screen is showing as very normal. We will make it to look beautiful soon. Now let's go to the SQL Server to cross-check the purchase order entry which we made just now. Select the pivot header table and click the select top 1000 rows menu. Yes, the header record is saved properly. Then select the pivot details table and right click and select the top 1000 rows menu. Wow, the detailed records are also saved properly. This is the easiest and best way to save the master and detailed records together. Even I searched in the net, did anyone has done this concept before? But for my surprise, no one has made this type of master detail screen so far. So guys, please listen properly. This will be very useful to your projects. I also have one more video on master detail, but that is done without the repository. Maybe you can say that is version 1 and this is version 2. Then go to the index.cshtml and change the unit.name column to pivot details of unit name column. Remember, we had added the not mapped property named unit name in the pivot details model. Then make one more entry and click the create button to save. This time the default value of the unit name is showing and unit name field becomes read only. And there were a lot of comments about the add item method in my previous master detail video. So I am showing you the add item code again. Please copy it as it is very important and try to understand it. Then copy the create.cshtml file and paste it in the same folder. After that, rename the pasted file to details.cshtml. Then open the details.cshtml and first change the heading to purchase order details. Then after, add the read-only attribute to all the input controls one by one. And then remove the validation spans from all the input controls because this is a read-only view, so no use of the validation spans over here. Copy the read-only attribute and paste it to the next control. Repeat these steps to all the controls of the form. I will show you this in the 32x speed. Okay, then scroll down to the button controls div and in here remove the submit button and copy and paste the back hyperlink in that place. Then set the ASP-action tag helper to edit and change the text of the link to edit. After that, save and run the application. And in here click the details link. Wow, the details screen looks beautiful. Can I have one like and subscription? Actually, why YouTubers always ask you guys for likes and subscriptions? Because when you like a video, the YouTube algorithm respects your likes and recommends that video to someone who is having the same kind of interest. So please like, share and subscribe. Next, click the back button to go back to the listing screen. And then click the details button of pivot number 1. Let's see this record also in the details view. After that, open the details.cshtml and scroll down to the bottom of the file and delete all the JavaScripts from this file. We do this because detail screen does not need any JavaScripts, because we are not going to add or remove rows in this screen. All it needs are an edit button to forward the request to edit screen and a back button to forward the request to listing screen. And now I am going to show you all the codes of the detail screen. So please take screenshots for a reference. I will scroll very slowly. Actually, I wanted to add the Ajax partial views images in the detailed rows, on and checking, etc. But it is taking very long time to make such a big video. I have only 2 days off weekly and one is already occupied for family works. So only 1 day is left for YouTube. And it is very difficult for me to cover all the topics in short period. But no worries, I am trying to teach everything I know to you guys. I have over 25 years experience, and in this 25 years most of the time I was programming only. Even though my job is not programming and now my job is project designing. But I still program because I love programming and my passion is programming. Steve Jobs once said, "If you love your work, then you can enjoy your work." So the best way to enjoy your work is to love your work. I think you have copied now, right? Let's open the purchase order controller. Here, notice the details action method and please copy it also. Then let's create one more purchase order entry. This time I am going to show you a bug in this module, and no worries, I will also show you how I fix that bug, so that you don't need to debug yourself. But I know you are already got the expertise level to fix the bugs by yourself, but still I will fix for you. Now in this entry I have added 3 rows, so please make a note of this, or otherwise take a screenshot of the screen. Then I deleted the middle row, so please notice, I repeat, I have deleted the middle row. Now let's click the create button to save this record. Okay, the record is saved. Let's open the record which we just created, I mean P1 number 3. Notice it has saved only the first record. It did not save the second record and it did not throw an error also. So this is a serious error in a real-time project. But what has caused this bug and how to fix this bug? First, let me tell you what has caused this bug. Actually, in MVC, the detailed records are saved sequentially. So there should be record for all the numbers in the sequence. If any number is missed in the sequence, then records after that missing number will not be saved. This is a known issue and I already explained this in the master detail part 3. So please watch it. That is an excellent video. I will keep the link of the video in the description box. Okay, to fix this bug, in the delete item method, comment the line which is removing the row, and then add a new line which will hide the row instead of removing. But for the end user, it does not matter whether it hides the row or deletes the row, because he has no clue on what is happening behind the scenes. Now build and run the application. Let's repeat the same actions again. Okay, now added the first row and added the second row also. Then delete the first row. Then click the create button. So as per our old logics, nothing should have been saved to the database. Yes, the record is saved successfully. Let's open the same record in the details view. Oh, both the detailed rows are saved. Actually, we deleted the first row, but why it is saved? Because we did not delete the row, we only hided the row. So we need to change our delete item method slightly. Of the recording, I have added 4 important lines to fix this issue. First line is getting the index of the deleted row. Then the second line gets the ID of the quantity text box present in that row. Then the third line gets the reference to that quantity text box. And finally the fourth line sets the value 0 to the quantity text box. So we are done with the delete item JavaScript now. These 4 lines are very important points of the tutorial, because last time when I post the master detailed tutorial of Resume Manager, many viewers or mailed me personally and was ready to pay me for the tutorial. All because they were not able to understand this delete item method. So this time I made it very clear and I spent more time on this method. So please understand this method. This will make you a good JavaScript developer. And then open the purchase order controller and locate the create action method. In here, add the magic link statement. This magic line will delete all rows having quantity equals to 0. Then build and run the application. In here, let's create the repeat of the same sequences which we did last time. Okay, now I have created 3 rows in the pivot details grid. And then delete the middle row. Please watch it carefully. I have deleted the middle row. So no trick shots here. Actually, I don't make any trick shots. I show it everything what I face and encounter during the development. Then click the create button to save the record. Perfect, the record is saved successfully. Then open the same record in the details view. Perfect, all the rows of the detailed rows got saved successfully. So our logics worked well. This is such a big tutorial, but still lot of work is pending, like how to bring the searchable list box inside the grid and how to print this purchase order, etc. But wait, everything cannot be done in a single video. So I have kept those for the part 2 of this video. But this time I will try to create the part 2 of this video at the earliest. For that I need your support. Please watch this video 2 or 3 times at least and like this video and share this video. With this, I am completing this video. Before I sign off, I request you to subscribe and share this video. I would appreciate if you would like and subscribe to this channel so that you will be notified for all of the new videos that I will be posting. Thank you and bye for now.